the ultimate contribution capitalists make to society is creating a job that allows an individual to not lean on the government to take care of them, which means taxes for me goes lower. God willing, the politicians are not irresponsible with money and they're not spending it constantly, which obviously we all know politicians are very responsible with money. They don't ever overspend money. They're very good at always wanting to lower taxes for us. Hence, I'm being extremely sarcastic here. But the other part that's kind of confusing lately, here's what happened, Channa. You guys will appreciate this. Renee, when we were going through the process of talking to investment bankers and selling the company, we had this one meeting in Fort Worth. And I'll never forget this. This was a family office that had, I think, $21 billion of money that they were responsible for. And so they wanted to buy a company. And the constant criticism they kept getting was the fact that a percentage of their advisors were not black or Hispanic. And they were 99% white. And this is a topic that's coming up a lot lately. I'm sure people are calling you guys about it, and you guys are helping them out. You know, so I said, so where are you going with this? He says, look, we have 1,000 resumes we looked at. This is our problem. Only 3 people applied that were black or Hispanic to want to become investment bankers in Fort Worth, okay, where they're at. What do we do about it? And so they kind of express indirectly their frustration. And for a moment, it was almost like we were not in the room. Did you feel that? Where it's like they were like talking to each other, and then all of a sudden they buttoned up and they fixed their ties. But for that, do you know what I'm saying?
I felt invisible for a moment. I'm like, do you want me to step outside while you have your staff meeting and we'll come back?
Yeah, they shared their frustration. and then the part where they went, Chan, is, you know, for us, one of our chief reputation officer, Maral, at the time, she's now the president, she got a report from Newsweek that was reported on Newsweek on our DEI score. And we had a very high DEI score. And, you know, they were interested about our DEI score. So I said, okay, we can get that for you. So they looked at the DEI score, and their conversation was, we value this asset to buy it because it allows us in the marketplace to see a company that has a high DEI score, hypothetically, right? Okay. And then we're on a flight back, and I'm sitting there saying, I don't know if that should be the reason for a company to make an investment just to please the government with a certain score that they have. So recently, one of the candidates that's creating a lot of ruckus, and he's being talked about everywhere, he's like the Andrew Yang of the right, Vivek Ramaswamy. I don't know if you guys are following him or not. So Vivek, I actually, you know, first time we had him on the podcast and I'm listening to him, like, okay, this guy's got an interesting angle he's taken. He's at 3% right now. This morning I saw the reports. He's ahead. He's right behind Nikki Haley, and he's a percent ahead of who's a lady from Arizona. Father was a
Carrie Lake?
McCain. Is it McCain?
Oh, McCain?
No, I'm sorry. She's not Arizona. Where's she based out of? Is she Arizona or no? McCain is, where's McCain from? Is she the one that's from the project, Lincoln Project? McCain, she's from, do you know that or no? Anyway, so she's 2%. Vivek is at 3%. I'm sitting there watching this, and Renee, all he talks about is how catastrophic ESG is. Okay?
Yep.
And how it's causing companies to make decisions that just doesn't make sense. Recently, Bud Light made a bogus of a decision, the VP of marketing, and she says, I'm a businesswoman. And I said, if you're a businesswoman, you know 85% of your customers are men who drink Bud Light. Why would you want to target a certain audience? And then story comes out that she was trying to help increase the ESG score because Anheuser-Busch has one of the lowest ESG score. But that's a dumb move to make because you just hurt your business. You lost $6 billion in valuation. And then the CEO had to come out, who was a former CIA, Harvard Business School, military, Marines. Like, look, you know, we're going to go back to our horse commercials because that's who our audience is. And we're going to target our military folks, you know, those who love America. So do you think the direction we're going right now with these, you know, ESG, DEI. I've never been in so many investment banker meetings, but everybody wants to know what our ESG, how responsible we're being with the society and economy and DEI, all this stuff. And it makes capitalists a little bit confusing because who are we pleasing now and why? Are you concerned as well with the direction ESG and DEI is going? I know it's a little bit of a technical question. I don't know which one of you guys wants to take it, but I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. Chan, go ahead. So Patrick, obviously it's a really sensitive issue. And you're right. I think there are a lot of people, and Vivek Ramaswamy is one of them, really pushing back. Obviously, he was a very successful entrepreneur before that. And what he's saying is reality is, we need to build excellent companies and we need to build it based on economics. And if we're geared too much towards that, and, he took on some different examples, like in the energy industry, by you asking me to do ESG, you're effectively asking me to kill my business and kill that. And so he's really pushing back on, does this really make sense to an economy? I'm going to dodge that partly, as you can understand as well. And maybe Chan will dive right in. But that is why, and I just go back to non-destructive, it allows us in that sense to recognize, as Chan articulated much earlier, that pressure is really coming down from different forces, for whether it's ESG or DEI, it's a reality. Now, there is a big wave of people, I think, increasingly saying, whoa, have we taken this too far? This is not making sense. We need to think about merit first. We need to think about other things. And I'll happy to share with you, an idea we have for non-disruptive creation and education that could help that, I think. But on the other hand, when you're pursuing non-disruptive creation in that sense, it gives you an angle in the economic pursuit to also show you're not doing social harm, and it's not perfectly aligned in the ESG language and the DEI language, but it can show a different metric of what you're doing in that space. And that's also why we believe it's important. But Chen, maybe you want to touch that hot button issue.
Now, government is so powerful, as you know, especially COVID made them so powerful. They own all these medications. They become a big government, so to speak. So we cannot deny it. Obviously, they become powerful. Of course, they make laws. So they say, hey, government, a business, you don't listen to me, I'll punish you this way. When you become more confident, that happens. Now, why that happens? First of all, they become so powerful. And there are things we need to lead business, okay? Not about business leading us. Government, we should leave them. They need our help. Maybe the good intention. We don't know what the real motivation is, power struggle, or it is really good intention to be a leadership. Think about it then. This is where non-disruptive creation is so powerful, in our view. What mechanism government has? They want to create jobs. That's obvious. People crying for jobs. So it's disruption, okay, great. But God, we don't have disruption. They know it. Who will like disruption anyway? So they say, hey, well, what are the mechanisms? Oh, we need to impose them this mechanism called the ESG one. What else they can do? And also the other side of it, you guys, corporate social responsibility, you pay the money. We should allocate that. Well, with all good intention. What alternative mechanism they have? Oh, it should be gender issue. Hey, you need to have some woman, some Hispanic. What else they can do? So we need to help the government, so to speak. We need to give them alternative way, really without going that direction. If there is no counter suggestion, they will always go that way. We know government very well, right? There are Machiavellian approaches sometimes government does. So now we need to educate government, as actually Tim talked about. Hey, why should you destroy the jobs? You don't have to. Look at entrepreneur. This is where you can make more money by doing it. So hey, think about it. Rather than talking those forcing allocate the store, forcing making money, there's a better way of doing it. So like, for example, we talk about Tom's idea. Hey, New York City, guys coming, entrepreneurs coming, everybody coming in. We need to create job here, right? Yeah, we welcome those disruptive guys, but it's create a lot of social instability. But now we want to tell you non-disruptive opportunities. That job growth is very important. Entrepreneur, here are the examples. Here are the questions. When you go back your home, you ask 1,000 questions similar like what. Don't be obsessed with one idea. Think about alternative paths to innovation and growth. This is why Renee and Chan talked about disruptive creation. So can you think about it? Now, I'm not going to score for you. I'm not going to force you. You come up with the idea. What we will do, make our fund available for those good ideas to help my job, creating job without disruption. It will give you double incentive to do the money. Now, if we sell idea to the government, government loves it because they just don't have anything further to do than control mechanism. Because there's better cry. Everybody say, government help poor people. Government help Hispanic people. Government help women. Well, of course they should. But now they're misdriven into a ridiculous bureaucratic approach. So now we suggest to say, hey, don't do it. Let's do it this way, business-like manner. And here's way you can create economic growth and profit at the same time helping. So think about non-disruptive opportunities. Here's what book says. Here's what is the way to do it. Can you have thinking about this way? So incentivize. But if you have a non-disruptive opportunity, we'll fund you. Well, then the government is backseat. Business people leading the way. Now, if government is leading, business people are sitting on, back of the car, that could be very risky enterprises in it. Now we need to change the order. And how can business incentivize themselves to drive it? Well, we need to have a new theory, new thinking process where that should happen. Non-disruptive creation is way put the business up front, but government is playing sponsor role or the incentive role, push the resources behind, make it push. Now, we need those many ideas. I'm not saying non-disruptive creation is the solution. Renee will never say that. I will never say that anywhere. Anyway, these are only Pat for your information. This is only show we came together. We never did it together. Pat, you said, I want to see Chan and Renee and Chan. We are also equally curious to see the Pat. Pat is such a fan for Blue Ocean. It has been very rude for us for a long time. Didn't see your face, even though we saw in a photo. Well, it's fun to see real figure, which you see today. I want to stop right here. Renee, you want to chime in?
I was just going to go back to something, Patrick, you said very early in the conversation when we were talking about, the applicability of Blue Ocean far and wide. Even you're talking about, your local church or a local church. And I think that, maybe this pressure is coming down. And there's also a wave pushing against it saying it's going too far. But in the interim, it's the reality companies are up against. And it's a very real reality. And some of the biggest people that control a lot of the equity and capital are making their investment decisions of where to invest pension funds in those companies. So the pressure is coming from all different directions. And it might mean from a company point of view in a very practical sense to start thinking about how do I Blue Ocean source employees differently? Do I need a different approach in terms of where I'm looking for my employees so that I can achieve the excellence I need and be able to meet this new differentiated quota? And are there different sources that I have to go to be able to make that happen? So, for example, for the diversity, equity, inclusion. So for some companies that might be the challenge for them then, given the reality that it's coming down on everyone, I think very, very hard and from different forces. Because to deny it and simply bucket, yes, we can do that. You can make that movement if that's what you feel, but that might take longer than the immediate pressure coming down. And the question is, I want to push for change like this gentleman, Vivek Ramaswamy, is doing, and a number of other people, of course. But at the same time, I need to deal with current reality and, a Blue Ocean approach as well to the employment HR policies of a company and how we do that sourcing could be a solution to there too.
Yeah, trust me, God knows how many meetings we've had about this to try to find a way on how to create our own Blue Ocean. I'll turn it over to you, but I want to say something before I turn it over to you. I lived in Iran 10 years. And then we escaped Iran to come to U.S., and when we escaped was because we were forced to do things we didn't want to do, okay? And the people who don't like to be forced, they leave. The people who cave in and they're like, well, I'll just kind of conform to being forced, they stayed. It's not in our DNA to conform and to be forced to do what we don't want to do. And then we lived in Germany for 2 years, refugee camp. Then we came to the States here. And then after the army, I choose to go into the financial services. And I realized most people who start a business is because they had a falling out with the boss at the prior company because they made a decision that they didn't want to pursue. The part with this is you can go to Subway, and if you don't like it, write a negative Yelp review. The manager may contact you to find a way to make it a positive review. You can go to DMV and write a negative review. No one cares. There is no accountability. You can write as many. Go find me a DMV in America with 5-star with more than 100 reviews. I will give them $10,000 donation, and I'll send them lobsters for everybody for a day. Enjoy yourself for treating people well. Government employees are not typically good. And I've been a government employee before being in the military. So I know what it is to be a government employee. So, yeah, the only thing I'll say to that is my concern is I don't want to abide by the force. And I know the whole thing about what, either 301 signatories, $51 trillion of asset under management, the net zero asset initiative, whatever they call it. So everybody's worried about not getting access to that money. But I just don't think that's the right way of dealing with entrepreneurs and capitalists. But again, that's my thoughts. I'll transition to whatever question Tom has.
Yeah, and I think when you have to, some people think capitalism is a dirty word. It's really freedom and liberty in a business construct governed by appropriate regulations and laws. And you have things that come down like Sarbanes-Oxley that added a lot of costs to going public, but it was there to fight financial fraud and make sure the playing level was fair, legal, and equitable. And so those things are good, even though I've been through a Starbucks IPO and it was not fun. It was more expensive, but I understood logically why all those elements and controls were present. Then you go to something where you have this unintended consequence and slippery slope, like carbon credits. Carbon credits, which there is a lot of fraud in carbon credits, where it's just a bunch of money spinning around where you're faking by, oh, I bought carbon credits over here, over there. Well, did that really take carbon out? Did that really plant so many hundreds of hectares of trees in the Amazon that had been previously stripped for farming? You know, did something really happen there? And the answer is no. So you have the unintended consequence and the slippery slope of all the things you're supposed to be doing end up being virtue signaling, and nothing happens. Like when we were on the plane coming from Fort Worth, I really felt that all that private equity firm wanted to do was, under the pressure of DEI, they looked at us as an opportunity to make an acquisition that was basically profitable, but also first virtue signaling so that they could check a box. And it's like, wait a minute, you know, PHP, when he had the vision to start it, he recruited from an open market and gave open opportunity. And guess what happened? You end up 51% female. What a surprise. 50% of the babies born are female. So when you do it in a fair, normal, and just way in an open market, as Pat did, you end up with a workforce that exactly reflected the population and in all of its wonderful diversity. So I think don't you think there's a lot of virtue signaling that happens here that is an unintended consequence? When you try to put a force point in there, you're going to get virtue signaling and even fraud, as opposed to allowing things to happen, you know, organically with incentive?
Mm-hmm. You know, Tom, what you're signaling to me, and I appreciate so much your passion. Imagine what you're saying is, I want to push back on what I see because I want to disrupt what I see happening right now. Because for me, it doesn't make sense. It's not how we built our business. It's not how great companies are built. And what we said is, what happens when you push back on disruption and you decide to disrupt the existing order? They're going to not just say like, welcome, they're going to push back. So what if instead you start thinking about what would be a non-disruptive way to go about articulating this vision we have of how you build greatness and making that non-disruptive market so big? I mean, Square Reader today is one of the biggest markets, right? One of the biggest, sexiest players out there versus existing credit card payment systems. And they didn't take it on. And so I'm being philosophic in that, but maybe just the counter punch as well. It could be one way, obviously, and I see where you're coming from. But maybe the other thing is to start thinking ourselves, okay, look, we don't like this. We know a lot of other business people that don't like this. We don't feel it's fair. We feel it's virtue signaling. We don't feel we'll build great companies. And in the end, we don't feel we'll hire as many people and help as many people as we can. Because your service and your product obviously helps so many people, right? Your education helps people. Your insurance products help people. So maybe we need a non-disruptive approach to get around that, to grow. And
can I add something on top of what Renee said to Bill?
Please.
Just so very important to distinguish. I now realize it. You keep on using virtue as kind of good thing to do based on this type of thing. We never talked about the virtue. Virtue is never really purported. Virtue is very subjective topic. You can be virtuous as a person. How can you be a scholar writing about virtue? I mean, dare to say it's a philosophical topic. When we are talking about social good for society, we never think about virtue. So let's distinguish between when we are talking social good versus virtue. What do you mean by social good? If it is not, we are talking virtue to be fair to the Hispanic, fair to this, and AI score. What are we talking? Business for good. It's not necessarily making people happier. That's not what we are doing. We are doing business manner. When you don't have to destroy, you don't have to. It shouldn't be. So don't ask question, destruction is necessary. Well, is that really necessary? Then all of a sudden you start to see new idea. Oh, don't have to. A lot of creative ideas are opening. Genie. So happen to help society. At the same time, you make lots of money. You swim in blue ocean. No competition. That's where the bingo is for making money. You go to a place where nobody's in, and you go non-disruptive way, there's no resistance. So it happens to be good for business to begin with. Second, also do not destroy, good for society. In that qualified manner we are talking about. We are not talking, hey, be good to society. Be virtuous about it. No, that's not what we are talking. So I just want to make the distinction, semantics. So
yeah, I would say two things. I would say one, I understand why, Renee, this is not a topic to talk about because you know who your customer is, and I respect it because I don't know if this makes sense. You're doing exactly what I would do because you know who your customer is. Some of your customers that reach out to you for Blue Ocean are the ones that are part of the ESG DEI community. And why would you give a message that would lose some of those customers? I get it. I respect it. So I totally understand why, Renee, you wouldn't touch that because maybe 5 of the biggest companies you guys consult for, they wouldn't want to do that part. Yeah, I would say the other part with this is the following thing, is on the social good side. You know what my argument is on the social good side? This is my argument for the social good side. I understand if you want me to use a portion of my money for the social good of the country if I'm not paying any taxes. But if I'm paying taxes and I'm giving you the money, it's your job to take that money and do something social good because that's the government's job. If that's what you're doing, you're taxing me for you to do good. Don't add additional restrictions for me to do good. My job is to create a company. My job is to create a company that creates jobs, innovates, makes things smoother, better for everybody else. That's not something that, and then you want to tax me as well. And then you also want to tell me what to do with the money that I'm not being taxed on to force me to. Now next thing you know is you want to tell me who for me to marry and how for my private life, how many kids to have. I'm not for that. I'm a guy that's subscribes to Andy Grove's book of Only the Paranoid Survive. And as an entrepreneur and immigrant and a capitalist, I'm going to stay paranoid. And that's not going to change. But I respect your position where you're going with this.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.